Hi everyone, you're in the kitchen with Brett from Stir Crazy Cooking, and we're here with Food Lovers Market just to show you a couple of tips and tricks in the kitchen. Today we're covering dry foods versus wet foods, canned foods, all of that kind of stuff, and also the difference between pulses and fresh foods, or pulses, legumes and beans. So let's start off quickly. I'm going to show you a couple of recipes as well. So we're going to do a fresh pasta recipe, and we're also going to do a gnocchi recipe. And these also, we're going to show you the difference between fresh pasta and dry pasta. So there's this whole idea about what is good for you, what is bad for you, what is fresh better than dry, and all of those components. So let's kick off. Some of the recipes we'll have on the website a little bit later. So I'll detail those when we get to that. So we're going to start off quickly with the differences between legumes, pulses and beans. So if you look here, I've got a whole bunch of things here. So these are regarded as legumes or pulses. Okay, so effectively a legume is a bean that looks like that. And inside it, you've got little nodules. So these guys and these guys are called pulses. So essentially all of these things are called pulses, and then you also get beans. And then beans are effectively the same as a pulse. So that's the difference. So, and all of these components are high in protein, they're very high in nutrients. You can have them dried or you can have them fresh. So I'm going to kick off quickly and just show you the difference between a dried one. So that is dried beans. You can tell a dried bean by how hard it is. This one here has been soaking. So these guys have been soaking now for probably about 4 or 5 hours, and you can see the difference between the rehydrated bean and the dry bean. Those are exactly the same thing. So what it does is it absorbs quite a lot of water. And if you look at the tin and open a tin, you'll see exactly the same thing in there, which I'm going to show you now. So that's those. So let's just open a tin quickly. And there's a whole lot of things around the tins as well. So inside the tin there's a brine, and that brine is what preserves the legumes inside. So I'm just going to open that. But a lot of people think that the brine is not good for you. There's a whole bunch of ideas I'm going to show you a little bit later, but we're just going to pour that off. You can see it's quite a thick sauce, and I'm just going to pour that out there. If you want to, you can rinse these, which is probably a good idea. So you can see all the brine coming out of there. And then what I'm going to do is just take these and just rinse that off. And the reason we rinse that, there's 2 reasons we actually rinse the brine. The one is that it's more digestible. It prevents gas. So if you're having a big argument with your husband or wife, don't rinse it off, and you can have your argument in bed under the covers. But that's pretty much up to you. So we'll just rinse that off quickly. And then I'm going to show you what we can do as well. So the stuff that comes out of the tin is called Aquafaba. And Aquafaba is actually a really good vegan substitute for egg white. So if you're very vegan, you can actually take some of that Aquafaba, and we'll blend it up quickly. And if you just whisk it, you can see this starts whisking up quite nicely, and you can actually whisk it up to an egg white consistency. So you can see just that is already coming to egg white, and you can actually make meringues out of this. You can do a whole bunch of things with this. So if you're vegan, keep your Aquafaba, and the best Aquafaba is to keep is from something like chickpeas or your red kidney beans. I wouldn't use it from lentils, because lentils obviously release a different substance. So your cleanest ones would be chickpeas or lentils. Okay, so let me just show you what it looks like. So this is the difference between a tinned bean, that's a fresh bean that's been rehydrated, and that's your dry bean. Okay. So let's just go into the difference between fresh, dry, frozen, and canned. So ideally what you want to do is actually eat fresh. So the best way to eat is actually literally grow your own stuff, go to the garden, pick it off, and you'll find most of your nutrients, all of your vitamin C's, D's, E's and A's sitting in those ingredients that you're picking fresh. As soon as you've picked something and it's going, for example, to market, you'll find that obviously it takes a couple of days and that it starts deteriorating. So your vitamin C and D starts deteriorating in your fresh produce. And then you're going to start weighing up how much of that fresh produce you actually need versus how much of your canned produce. Obviously, if it goes to market, right, then if you're buying fresh in the market, obviously that's been there for 1 or 2 days, that's fine. As soon as it goes to about 4 or 5 days, your fresh ingredients start deteriorating to a point where they're actually starting to lose their nutrients. Nice thing about frozen stuff, so the difference between fresh and frozen. So you can take things like these berries and that and buy them fresh, and obviously you'll have all of your nutrients in these fresh berries. Now, strawberries don't last more than about 4 or 5 days. Your things like your kiwi fruit will probably last about a week. If you can actually keep those in your fridge and use them as fresh, they're probably the best. As soon as they start deteriorating, then you can start freezing them. And a lot of the people now take fresh ingredients like strawberries, blueberries, and they freeze them straight away, and that actually retains all of the nutrients right in the beginning. And yeah, so obviously if something is going to deteriorate quicker, freeze it. You can always use it afterwards, and then those nutrients actually they get maintained in the produce. When you're talking about dry goods, so these dry goods that I've showed you earlier, so these guys, your lentils and chickpeas. Now lentils not so much, but in chickpeas are often covered with a sugary coating to actually preserve the chickpeas. But what you want to do is rinse those chickpeas off. Just take any of these things, any dry ingredients, just rinse them off before you start cooking them. And then obviously these things you have to soak for at least probably about, I'd say, 6 to 8 hours, ideally overnight, to actually get them replenished and refreshed, and then you can start cooking them. So this is a perfect example. And also, once you've rehydrated these, you don't need to chuck this water away. This water is actually really nice for stock as well. Okay, so you can use that in your stock. Okay, then lastly, there's the canned goods. So canned goods have been produced to last a long time. So if you look at the label on this, for example, this one here says December 2021. So this is going to last another year, and that's the nice thing about canned goods, is they actually have a long shelf life. Generally, your canned goods will last up to about 4 years. The problem with canned goods is that everything has to be heated up, okay, and everything has to be almost blanched before it gets canned. So what it does, you're actually removing all of the properties of that item that could cause deterioration. So that bleaching process does remove elements like vitamin C and vitamin D from the product. So you will have a reduced amount of that, but obviously they will still be rich in vitamin A and vitamin E. Okay, so your canned goods, obviously you can substitute your canned goods with fresh goods, and ideally what you want to do is do a combination of canned goods, fresh goods, and if you need to, frozen goods as well. Okay, so that's just a quick rundown on all the differences between those things. So just to recap, people who've just joined us now, we're discussing pulses, we're discussing fresh versus frozen, dry versus fresh, etc. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to go on to is I'm going to look at fresh pasta. So you buy pasta in packets like this, and there's nothing wrong with that pasta. So I'm actually going to show you a method of cooking pasta. So I'm going to open this packet. And your dry pasta, so this is the tagliatelle, so your dry pasta looks like that. And I've made some fresh pasta, which looks like this. So this was made today. You can see it's still a little bit malleable, so you can actually buy this in the store. And the making fresh pasta tastes so much nicer. So if you have a pasta machine at home, then rather make your fresh pasta and literally vomit it into a pot, and you can cook that up, and it tastes fantastic compared to some of your dry pastas. So you can also, I know that certain stores do sell the fresh pasta, which is, yeah, it's a really nice way of eating it. So I'm going to show you how to cook that up. So the first thing I'm going to do is, when you're cooking up pasta, I'm going to take a pot. There's this whole idea that you have to put oil in your pasta water and salt and all sorts of things. but you don't really need to put oil in. The oil is really just to stop the pasta sticking after you've cooked it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to spray and cook a pot, and what that's going to do is it's going to prevent the pasta from sticking when I cook it. Another way to do it is obviously just to take a little bit of oil and wipe it around with a paper towel. And we're just going to add some water into that and get that going. And when you're cooking pasta, you need to get quite a lot of water in your pot. So I'll show you how we're going to do that quickly. So I'm just putting a little here. We're boiling some water now, and we're going to add that to it. So here's a perfect pot. So if you look at this pot, this one's boiling nicely. It has been sprayed, and I'm just going to add a little bit of salt into that. And that salt is just going to help the water a little bit. And it's also going to flavor the pasta slightly. Okay. So I'm going to get that back on the go. And we've made a delicious homemade gnocchi. And it's a butternut gnocchi. You can find it on our website. It looks like this. And I'm going to show you how to take that a little bit later. But this is literally butternut, flour, a little bit of spices, and we're going to throw this into the pot just now as soon as it warms up. And then we're going to show you how to cook that and how to present that. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is, if you've got a pasta machine, I don't know how many of you have pasta machines, there's a couple of ways that you can work with pasta. So you can actually roll out pasta into nice little layers like this. So you can use a roller if you've got it at home, and pasta is really simple. So we've got a recipe on our website. Pasta is literally flour, water, a bit of salt, and that's it. And what you do is you mix that up quite nicely until it forms a really good consistency, and you can put that in your fridge for about 20 minutes, and after that you can actually start rolling it into lasagna sheets that would look like that. Okay, any questions?
Do you have egg in your pasta?
You can put egg in your pasta. There isn't any egg in this pasta, but yes, you can put egg in your pasta. So I'm just going to show you how to make a quick tagliatelle. We've just got a little pasta machine here if you want to take a look. And I don't know how many of you have got pasta machines at home, but these are really nice to have. Let's just move that out the way. And this is you've got one unit here, which is your lasagna, and then this over here is your tagliatelle, which I'm going to put it into. And then over here we've got spaghetti. So all we're doing is we're literally pushing it through like this. And that's how easy it is to get your tagliatelle out of there. It's so quick and easy. And these things aren't particularly expensive. And then what you do, this is quite wet, so you can see it's very wet. And you're going to literally lay this over a bar or over a back of a chair or something just to dry out a little bit. Until it gets to this sort of consistency. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to actually add this pasta into this pot over here. So I'm going to cook up 3 of these tagliatelles. Now the difference between fresh pasta and dry pasta is dry pasta, to get al dente, you're going to have to cook this for about 8 minutes. If you're making fresh pasta like we've just made now, it literally takes about 2 minutes. So there's a big difference between your cooking time. And the nice thing about the fresh pasta is it actually cooks so quickly, and you can pull it out and literally just drain it quickly, and you're ready to rock and roll. There's another nice thing that you can do if you have a pasta machine, so just take a look here. So what we've done is we've actually taken a couple of leaves, or flower leaves, and you can actually roll it into your pasta, which is quite cool. So you can make nice little pasta sheets and present an open lasagna like that, which makes it something unique, something different. Okay.
Chef, very quick one. Flambe. Do the dehydrated and fresh and frozen influence the flavor when you're cooking it?
Okay, so your fresh ingredients will always have a little bit more flavor. So what happens if you do start freezing stuff, some things will lose their flavor a little bit. Things like berries and that won't generally lose their flavor. But other things like meats and that will lose that real freshness of, like for example, chicken or meats and that. So ideally you want to buy your meats and things fresh. And when you get your tin stuff, I find that your fresh stuff, when you're rehydrating, you are getting a slightly different flavor, but it's not that noticeable. Most of the time you're cooking this with tomato and various other things. One interesting thing though is when you're working with tinned tomato, so the process of tinning a tomato actually, the preservatives actually start breaking down the fibers in the tomato, and when those fibers are broken down, they actually combine to create a lot more nutrients in the tomato. So tinned tomatoes are actually really good for you. Okay? So that's just a fun fact. So I've put this in now. This has been going now for probably about 2-3 minutes. I haven't put any oil in there other than spraying the bottom. I'll put a little bit of salt in there. I'm going to stick some salt in here.
Can you make this pasta you do gluten-free?
You can make pasta gluten-free. So you can use something like there's different flours that you can use. And you can make pasta very much the same way with gluten-free flours. So no problem. Right, so I'm going to take this and I'm just going to put a little bit into our pot and cook that up a little bit. So what we've also done is I've made a really nice sauce here. So this is a Chicken Trinchado sauce. Literally what it is we've got some chicken pieces in there. There's a little bit of cream, a little bit of wine, a little bit of stock, some onions and garlic and some chili. And we're going to put this over our pasta a little bit later. So I'm just going to warm that up. This is on our website, so that if you want to look at the recipe, go and take a look at our website and you'll find it there. And just warm that up a little bit later because we've got hungry people here. Yeah.
Chef Fred, can you just remind Jaded Teal about how do you stop your fresh pasta from sticking onto itself in the pots?
Okay,
not onto the pot, onto itself in the pot.
Okay, so this doesn't really actually stick onto itself. If you look here, all right, it's very much loose. Okay, so I don't put any oil in that. It actually does separate. So what you don't want to do is put piles of pasta in at a time. Okay, so you want to put a couple of different strands in, and then literally when you take it out, you'll see that it doesn't stick too much. Just check every now and then that it isn't sticking, so you can see these are all loose strands like that. So you can literally pick them up and they all fall apart. So the pasta isn't actually going to stick to each other. What we also do obviously is if you look at this pasta here, there's quite a bit of flour in between it and that pasta stops it sticking. Alright. With dry pasta, it shouldn't stick to each other, so let's just take a look at the dry pasta. So you can see here, same thing. Alright. So you actually don't need oil in the pot to actually release it. Okay. So you can see this one is a lot, how can I say, it still has a while to go before it gets cooked. And this one is pretty much almost there. See how nice and soft that is. And we've literally put this in about 2 minutes ago. Can you just get me another cup, one of these? Okay. So I'm going to take this off and drain it.
So about how many minutes was the fresh pasta?
Fresh pasta is literally about 2 minutes. Okay. I can take that and we're just going to put that into the pot. I'm actually just going to add this one as well, so we're just going to cook the whole lot. And what you want to do is you want to get your pot boiling quite rapidly, and it needs to be, the more water in your pot, the better. Okay. So obviously you don't want it boiling over, but ideally you want quite a lot in your pot. What I'm going to do is just take a little bit of olive oil, and I'm just going to sprinkle some olive oil over this so it doesn't stick. So that's the point where you've got to be a little bit careful that it doesn't stick too much. Okay, and that's going to drain nicely, that'll dry out a little bit, and that's going to be perfect for our pasta dish. Okay, so just
it's 10 to.
So I'm going to take this pasta off shortly. See, this is still taking quite a while. The best way to test pasta is you actually take a strand like this, and you can pinch it. If you pinch it, and it pinches through quite easily, then it's al dente. The other option is to taste it, and if you taste it and it's a little bit chewy, then you know it's al dente. If your teeth start sticking to it, then like they are now, then you need 2 or 3 minutes. Okay, but nothing too serious. So that's been going now for about 5 minutes. This one here again has been going for just over a minute, and you can see it's almost ready. Okay, so that's the joy about fresh pasta. And fresh pasta, I promise you, tastes so much different. So if you can get some flour, go to Food Lovers Market, buy some flour, and make your own pasta. It's actually really cool. Okay. And then also pasta sauces. It doesn't matter what pasta you use for different sauces. What you want to do is, if you're making a sauce for a pasta, what you want to do is find a pasta that absorbs that sauce or clings to that sauce quite nicely. So we've got a tagliatelle, and you can see there's quite a lot of surface area on that. So I can put quite a wet sauce on this, and it'll pick up nicely. So an Alfredo sauce, an arrabbiata, something like that. If you've got something like penne, what you want to do is do almost like a seafood pasta, where you've got chunks of seafood and you've got chunks of penne in there, and that would work really nicely. Okay, so this is pretty much done. I'm going to take this off now.
Some people rinse their pasta like under cold water or something when it's done. Is that a big no-no?
No, you can do. What it does is it just removes a little bit of the starches. So if you want to rinse your pasta, you're welcome to. It's not critical. It doesn't really make much difference. But yeah, I like especially fresh pasta. I would leave like that. But my dried pasta, I tend to rinse. Funny enough,
Why do you rinse it?
Because I find that dried pasta seems to have a lot more starch on it. But that's just me. But that's entirely up to you. There's literally, you can do it whichever way you want to. Okay, so I'm going to put this on the go again, and then I'm going to do my gnocchi in here quickly. And then I just want to show you how gnocchi cooks. So gnocchi is essentially flour and a flavorant. Okay, most gnocchis are made of potato, but you can actually find a gnocchi that, yeah, this one is a sweet potato. You could, in fact, no, this is butternut, but you can make it with sweet potato or anything like that. Just take these bits out. I'm going to get that on the go. So this over here is now, I would say, pretty much done. Okay, and you can see it's not really sticking together. Okay, well, I'm holding it like it is, but you can separate it quite easily. So there's no need to put oil in your pasta. Okay, so let me just get pasta sauce up. Right, so this I'm actually just going to drain in here. In fact, and this one I'm going to rinse because I can feel the stickiness in it. I don't feel the stickiness when I pick this up. So that's entirely up to you to feel the starches in it. I'm just going to give this one a quick rinse. Okay. Alright, so those are your different pastas. So you can see the fresh pasta versus the other one. This has obviously got egg in it. That one doesn't have any egg in it. So your egg is actually going to make it a little bit yellower as well. Right. So let's do the gnocchi quickly.
Is it common for dried pasta to have egg in it?
Yes, it is. So a lot of your pastas would have egg in, so just take a look and see on the ingredients. Read the back of the ingredients and you'll see what actually is part of it. Let me just see what this one says. So on this one over here, put the instructions, some ingredients, ingredients. But just take a look and see, because some of them do have egg in them, others not. This one's got a whole bunch of recipes, which is quite nice. I quite like that. Right. Okay, so I'm going to get on gnocchi in here. With gnocchi and these things, you'll see immediately it drops to the bottom. So if you take a look there, I don't know if you can see that, it's a little bit, I'll add a bit more water into it. Yeah. So it'll drop right down to the bottom. As soon as it's cooked, it's going to start floating. Okay, that means that your flour is cooked. When it starts floating, just let it sit for about another minute or so, and then you'll know that your gnocchi is cooked right through, or your flour has actually done its job. Okay, let me just cook that up quickly. Right, so I'm going to prepare a quick plate for you. Why don't you grab me a bowl, a pasta bowl, please? Are there any further questions? Okay. So let me take this pasta. I'm going to take this tagliatelle, and we're going to plate that really nicely. There we go. Oops. So that's a really nice portion. The other thing is when you, I'm not too stressed about, I mean we've put oil over this pasta so it does separate quite nicely, but if you're doing a really nice saucy pasta, it is going to separate your pasta pieces as well. Okay, so I'm going to add some of this delicious
Chef
Conchato
Brett,
sauce.
what's your favorite pasta?
I'm a chili fan, so pasta arrabbiata is my favorite. Yeah, it's a really delicious pasta to make. And we've also got one on our website as well, so take a look. So there's a beautiful
Stunning plate.
homemade tagliatelle with a Conchato sauce. The Conchato sauce is actually a Mexican sauce, or South American sauce actually. And it's got quite a bit of chili in it, which is really nice. So that's one of the nicer ones. And that's also, in fact, it's a Portuguese recipe. So that's often used for pastas, or they serve that actually with a bread roll and something on the side. So if you look here, you'll see my gnocchi start floating. Okay, and that's where I know it is actually starting to cook really nicely.
That gnocchi looks so yum.
Okay, then I'm going to put that into spoons.
So we know we can find the recipe on the website, but quickly, what's in there? We've got some butternut, some flour. That's it.
Okay, no, so there's butternut, there's flour, there's a whole bunch of spices. In fact, Ricky, come tell us what's in the gnocchi. So Ricky made this today.
So there's butternut.
Come stand here.
Chef Ricky.
Chef Ricky. So Ricky made the butternut gnocchi today, so tell them what's in the butternut gnocchi.
Say hello first.
Hi guys. So we've obviously put in some fresh butternut. We've put that through and put in the oven as well. We've added some spices with that, just really sort of liven up the flavours. And then we have mixed in, cooked it again on the pot with some lovely butter. Just gave it some nice salt and pepper, and then we've pushed that through again with butter, and this is what we're left with.
Yeah, so the recipe is on the website. So it's not difficult to make. So it sounds like Ricky's done a really fantastic hour-long job on it. Not really. Okay, it was quite quick and easy. So what we do is we've got a butternut. We've got a little bit of tagliatelle there. We've got a delicious tomato coulis with that, which I'm literally just going to lay over the top. You can actually put this down as a base and then set your pasta on the top as well. And then what we're going to do is sprinkle a little bit of parmesan over that. There's some nice parmesan cheese. There we go. Add a little bit of greenery. And there is a beautiful butternut gnocchi with tomato coulis. Okay, so if you like the presentation here, next week we are doing a plating and presentation course. So tune in next week. We're doing a whole bunch of different things. I'm going to show you how to prepare plating. I'm going to show you how to do different things at home to impress your guests. And remember, when you are plating and preparing food, people eat with their eyes. So the first thing you want to do is actually look at a beautiful plate, and you know half your battle is won when you're preparing food.
Chef Brett, before you leave, is there no need to rinse the starch off your gnocchi?
I don't rinse it off the gnocchi, no. There's very little on there. So it's basically flour and butternut in it.
And the tomato coulis, can you give us a quick little...
Okay, so yeah, the tomato coulis, it's got a little bit of chili in there. It's got, I think we had some roasted tomatoes, a bit of tomato puree that's cooked up with things like oregano, salt, pepper. You can add whatever other spices. We generally put some thyme in there. The recipe is on the website, so this whole recipe with the gnocchi and the tomato coulis is on the website. So download it, take a look, cook it up, and on the Stir Crazy website. Take a look and send us some photographs. Post photographs on Food Lovers Market or on our website as to what you've done. And I'd like to see you plate. Send us some beautiful plates of what you've done. Okay, so we'll see you next week for plating and presentation. Thanks very much for watching, and yeah, have a good evening.